amazing. You have no idea how amazing this is, honestly.
And we're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
So great.
So, let's begin, shall we?
Yes, of course.
So, you've been with Essence magazine for over a decade now.
I felt that something told me that it was the right thing to do. I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids. I felt like I still have time to make this change. And so I did. I actually ended up moving back in with my parents. I know they thought I was like, I lost my mind. They were probably like, what is this? You've spent all this time having an education, you know, going to college. And, but I felt that it was, I told them, this is only temporary. I moved back in with them for a little bit and started over. And the minute that I started as an editorial assistant, I knew it was the right thing. Yeah, it just felt right. Yeah. It just felt right, yeah.
That's awesome. And that was with Glamour magazine, is that right?
Yes, that was at Glamour magazine, and I worked for the lifestyle editor, and she was in charge of fashion and beauty. So a lot of one of the reasons that I really wanted the job was because I could write fashion copy. I had a whole column to myself, fashion Q&A, and I thought that that was pretty amazing to be able to just, you know, just to have something with my name on it and a byline and just kind of prove that this leap of faith that I'd made was worthwhile. Yeah, it was a really great experience, I have to say. It took me, I want to say, probably 6 or 7 interviews though, because they were so worried that because I'd had so much work experience that I wasn't willing to start over. And so I say to anybody, you know, but I had a story, like I had a vision for myself, and I kept telling that same story. This is what I feel that I was meant to do. This is why I want to be in this, you know, in this industry. These are the kinds of stories that I want to tell. When you are very clear, you have that sense of clarity about what you want and how badly you want it, and you're willing to do almost anything, which is like basically taking a pay cut in half and moving back in with your parents. Like, who does that? You know, I mean, really. And it was, I just knew it was the thing that was the right thing to do.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And so, obviously, starting out, well, changing careers and starting again in your 30s is something that many people deem, obviously, as a scary thing, which is what you're saying that it was. But what advice would you give to any ladies or any men out there who they're in their 30s and they don't know yet what career they want to do, or they're in a career like you were and they knew it wasn't the right thing? How do they push past that?
Oh, okay. I think that it's really important to think about the things that you're drawn to. I knew that I was drawn to magazines. You mentioned earlier that when I was a kid, my mom and I used to like cut up old magazines and make our own like books and magazines. That was something that was fun, and the storytelling was something that was always fun. So when I thought about, this isn't right for me, what else can I do? That was a natural evolution. It just felt organic to me. And I think that when you're trying to figure out what it is that you're destined to do, because we're all destined to do something, we all have gifts, every single one of us. And if I can make a change like this in my 30s, certainly anybody here in this audience can do the same thing. You can redefine what it is that you want for yourself. You just have to be very clear, and that means spending time with yourself. So I did spend a lot of time just thinking through, what does this look like? What does the storyline look like? How am I explaining why I want to do the things that I want to do? How am I using the past experience that I had? Because I had 7 years of work experience in retail, so it's not like I wasn't in fashion. I had that experience. So how do you apply that to what you want to do moving forward? And everyone has a skill set. Everyone has tools that you've learned. Figure out how to apply that to the next thing that you want to do. And that's what's worked for me.
Obviously, it's worked very well. Okay, so talking about Essence. So Essence, as I mentioned in your intro, first hit the stands in 1970, and it has consistently been at the top. And of course, since you've been there as well, you know, the content has received so much praise. How do you make sure you keep the content fresh and relatable to your younger readers as well as the older readers?
Well, you know, the one thing that's amazing about Essence is that it truly is a brand that is for everyone. We reach 21.2 million people monthly, daily, online, on our social media platforms, with the magazine. We truly do want to serve our audience, and that's always been the mission from the very beginning. I mean, the mission was when the 4 gentlemen started this magazine in 1970, they realized that there was a huge void in the market for a magazine that spoke to Black women specifically, that honored them, that celebrated them, that you know, celebrated their accomplishments, that recognized our ambition, everything that we wanted to bring to the table and that we can bring to the table. That's what this magazine was for. And those needs are still there. Those, you know, that desire to be recognized, to be valued, to be seen is still something that is incredibly important for Black women. And so how we stay relevant now is just making sure that we're on every platform that exists, right? So we have a huge Snapchat audience. We're one of the few African-American brands on Snapchat, Discover, and most of our audience is between the ages of 12 and 18. So we're starting very young, right? And then you go to essence.com that has a more, you know, millennial audience. And then you go to the magazine that has a more, you know, a more mature audience. But throughout, we're serving everyone's needs in very different ways. And I think that's how you stay relevant. I mean, we just launched a podcast called Yes Girl. It's available on all platforms, iTunes, you name it. And it's great because it's another way for us to have a voice and speak to this audience, especially in this time when there's so much going on in our communities globally, not just in the US. It's important to be in those spaces where you can have a real impact on how people think or how they see themselves empowered. And that's really what Essence has always been about. You know, our formula is empowerment always, throughout. But then there's a little bit of edge, you know, so we take on tough issues and topics, but then there's also escape. You want to feel like you can read the magazine and kind of get lost a little bit, or you can read an op-ed on the essence.com, or you can go on our Snapchat Discover platform and lose yourself a little bit in some of the amazing beauty tips and all the things that we have to offer. We understand that we have to be all 3 of those things for our audience, because this is what she deserves at the end of the day. And we say she a lot, and that's how we refer to our audience, is she, is she's just that close to us. We care about what is important to her. She is at the core of everything that we do. It really is all about her.
That's great. I was also told that you decide all the covers. Everybody who's going to be on the cover of Essence, that comes down to you. Okay, and you've had some amazing covers. You've had the Obamas, you've had Idris Elba, Mary J. Blige, Queen Latifah. Like, you've had major names. How do you make that decision?
It's not, I'll tell you, it's not easy. I mean, it's a process. There are so many incredible, as we know, there are so many incredible artists, talents that should be recognized, that we should celebrate on the cover. And it all depends on really what is the story. What is the message that you're trying to bring? Yeah. I mean, with the Mary J. Blige cover, for example, that was our November cover, she really wanted to talk about how she's moving on from, you know, a really painful process of a divorce,
Yeah.
a lot of, just a lot of pain, but she's always found the silver lining in all of it. And Mary has been on the cover, I want to say, at least 13 times. I think she may be the person who's been on the cover the most, next to Queen Latifah. And she comes back to us again and again because she understands that we understand her, and we have a relationship with her that has spanned decades. And that's, I think, is what's really key when you're thinking about people you want to be on the cover. It's what message are you trying to send in that particular moment in time. When we did the Hidden Figures cover with Taraji and Octavia and Janelle, that was to highlight the fact that so many of us have gone unrecognized and we've made incredible contributions. So let's talk about that. When we had the Obamas on the cover last October, that was to celebrate the 8 years that they were in office and to really chronicle their legacy. And so when we think about the covers, it's not just, I don't think about what new project that person has out that particular month that they're trying to sell. I really think about what is the story that is going to give an emotional connection to our audience. It's going to make you feel like you're coming away with something that's valuable to you. Because, so many celebrities can just go on there's so many platforms right now, they can go on anything and talk about what their new project is, but you want to have a sense that this person you're bringing them close. And I think that that's the difference that we make, and we spend a lot of time, not just in planning a cover, behind the scenes. We do storyboards, we talk about, if they want to use their personal stylist, we work with their stylists, makeup and hair people. We put a lot of energy into making sure that this is the absolute best experience that you can have when you're doing an Essence cover, because it means a lot to them. Yeah. For some people, especially when it's the first cover, it means everything to them. And we want them to have an incredible experience. So it's like family, quite honestly. And it's been that way. That was the tradition that I observed when I first started at Essence and watched all of the other leaders do what they do. And that's what we're trying to continue, because we understand that we have a responsibility to make sure that everyone, no matter who you are, feels good about being in this book and being acknowledged and feeling beautiful. Like, what's better than that? What's better than that to just feel like, oh my God, I just feel good today. I feel like nothing can go wrong. I feel like somebody finally saw me and appreciates me. That is the role that we serve in this community, and we take it very seriously.
And it's a role that you're doing really, really well. Very, very well, of course. So you kind of answered this question in your previous answer, but I was going to ask how you ensure that, how do you curate the content that you have in the magazine? What's the process for that?
Okay, so it's a very collaborative process. We have a very small but mighty team of editors and art directors and photo editors. And we spend a lot of time talking about who we want to see on the cover, who we want to see in book, what do we want it to look like, what is seasonal, what's on trend, what makes sense, what are you seeing in the market, what do you think our audience would be excited about. We talk through all of that, and we do a lot of that on the front end, meaning we have concept meetings, and where we talk about all these things and work through them. And I'll ask a lot, and I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I'm sure it's very annoying, but I ask a lot of questions about, well, what's that going to look like? And how is she going to see herself in that? And do we have enough variation in shades and skin, tones and textures of hair and all those things? I'm thinking about all those things collectively as each department presents what they want to highlight for that particular month. And I mean, it's vital to, that's part of the role, like to make sure that everyone feels represented. So we spend a lot of time talking about that. Then when it's about time for a shoot, all the clothes come into, we have this huge fashion closet. So there's like clothes and accessories and jewelry like you can't believe, and shoes like you can't believe, and just a gorgeous, gorgeous things. And then we spend time thinking about, okay, how is this story going to be told, right? In the images, because that's important too. Even though there's not a lot of words on a fashion story, it's still important to tell a story. And then you go on the shoot, and there's the piece about what's the hair gonna look like, what's the makeup look like, how are we representing this look, would she really wear that, you know, those kinds of things. It's all of that. And I think that attention to detail is critical, because this audience is super smart. Smart, like I don't know why people try to underestimate Black women. I really don't. It drives me crazy. It's my biggest pet peeve, because we are so sharp, incredible, astute, fashion forward, influential. We're all those things. And so we know, yes, that's right. We're all those things. So we know when something is off. You know, you can see it. I know. Sometimes, you know, I mean, not everything in every issue is like my favorite. You know, I wish I could say that it was. But there are some times when I'm like, oh, I wish we'd done something different, you know? And that's okay. It's really okay. I had a teacher once who told me that if you have one thing that you're really proud of in every issue, you should consider that to be really good. And well, I have a higher standard than that, but I was just like, okay, I get it. You just want to make sure that people are spending their money, they're spending their time. You want to make sure that the audience comes away with an incredible experience. And that's what we try to deliver monthly, daily, 365.
That's great. And so you mentioned there that, of course, fashion is a major part of Essence as well. I assume that you obviously keep your eye on African fashion as well. So are there any African brands, fashion brands that stand out to you? And also, what do you think about African fashion and its space within the global fashion scene?
Listen, I think African fashion is extraordinary. You know, there are many people who have been featured actually in Essence. We have a page that's Black designers to watch.
Okay.
And we run that, I want to say, every couple of months to introduce our audience to new people that they should be following. We talk about how to find them on Instagram, how to, you know, really get to know them. And we feel that that's part of our responsibility as a brand, to make sure that we're constantly bringing the new, you know, I'm not going to call out anyone in particular because I don't want to play favorites, but there are many, many, many artists, designers that we watch, follow, love to feature, and are excited about, because this is a very, I feel, unique time globally for us. This is the second year you've done this event, yes. And so I think that's exciting because it helps bridge these gaps, but they're not really gaps. I mean, you know, I come here, this is my first time here, and I see so much that feels familiar to me from home, you know, from the US. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like this is, you know, that there's anything strange. It's just that we haven't had an opportunity or an ability to connect with each other in ways that we've wanted to, for whatever reason. I think it's extremely admirable that GT Bank has taken on the charge of saying, let's make promoting enterprise something that's incredibly important, because it is important. I mean, this is how we start to support support ourselves, do for ourselves, create ourselves, connect with each other, network with each other. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you want to see, that there are opportunities that are available to us within our own circles. We just have to have a venue, a platform to bring them together. And that's what I feel like something like this weekend does. It gives you that opportunity to see the connections, right? And to make the most of them, which I think is really extraordinary.
Yeah, that's great. So for any African brands out there, so you say, you know, to make the most of those opportunities, how would you advise them to be able to stand out and to be noticeable, if that makes sense?
Oh, sure. So what's important to us if you're looking to be featured in Essence magazine, when you're featured in Essence, you get a response that can be sometimes incredibly overwhelming if you're not ready, right? So you want to make sure that you are able to handle the volume of business that is going to come your way just by being featured in the brand, and that you know that you have everything set up in a way that the ultimate customer experience is essential. Because the first thing we're going to hear about is if they try to reach out and purchase something and it was not a great experience. That's the first thing we'll get letters about. And I'm telling you, we get this. Our audience is like, they're like our sisters. So they send us emails, they send us, you know, they DM us, they're on social media. They're very comfortable letting us know how they feel. So it's important for us that if we're going to put something together like we do, this is the second year we've done our Buy Black gift guide, where everything that's featured in the gift guide is Black owned. So we really vet the businesses to make sure, okay, if you get tons of order, like, are you going to be able to handle it? Is the customer going to have a good experience? And the only reason I say that is because a lot of our businesses are new. I mean, a lot of it, entrepreneurship is, for many of us, something that's just starting. In the US, Black women are starting businesses faster than any other group, but they're also not sustaining it because they're not getting this financial support, the access to capital, the resources that they need. And I see here that what's great is that having, a GT Bank is you have a built-in kind of a support for your business. So that's something that I think is really important, and you just want to make sure you're ready and that every single person is going to have an amazing experience, because I think too often when we go to other, when we go into other spaces, we don't always feel valued. And so when we come into our own spaces, we really want to feel valued and taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Also, I'm sure that there are many budding journalists and editors out there in the crowd. So from your vast experience, do you have any tips or any advice to give them in terms of being able to stand out as well and being able to hone their craft?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're looking to, and I really hope that there's a lot of people who are looking to go into journalism in this audience, because I think it is a tremendous field, especially now when you've got so much emphasis on fake news and this and that. You really need people who are interested in telling the true stories of who we are and what we represent. And that will always be in style and always in vogue. So I would say, learn your craft. Spend the time to get a good foundation. I actually went back to school after 3 years at Glamour magazine to get my master's in journalism, because I felt like I didn't know enough to be able to get to the next level. I thought it was very important to spend that time, and so I took a year and I went and got and got some more education, and that was, I'm telling you, it unbelievable experience to get that, and just to feel that confidence, because sometimes you don't always feel like you know what you're doing. You know, I mean, that's honest. Sometimes you don't feel that way. So what do you do? For me, education has always been that link, that piece that if I get a good education in this, I know that I know what I know, and no one can take that away from me, and that stood me in good stead, right? So I think that's the advice that I have. Make sure you know what you know, get that education, get the experience under your belt, do the grunt work, do the stuff that's like not so glamorous and pretty. It's worth it, because you get to understand every piece of the business. Because I had so many different jobs at Essence, I knew the entire magazine by the time that I stepped into this role, because I'd done almost every job. I mean, from the bottom to and that was fine. It gave me a comfort level and a confidence and a real understanding of who this audience is that you can't fake. Like, you can't just make that up. You can't barrel your way through to know that. Sometimes you just need to take the time. And I think in this world right now, we're all so quick to want the instant gratification, the I need to be, you know, editor-in-chief at 25, and, you know, all those things. And sometimes that's not the best thing. I think the fact that I was passed over for the job twice before I got it. Like, I tried out for it 2 times, didn't get it, you know, and then the 3rd time was the charm, fortunately. That taught me a lot about what else I needed to do to get myself ready, to make myself ready. I think sometimes we're so quick to say, or give up, or feel like, well, it's just not meant for me. But sometimes that time in between is the time where you need to learn something else. There's another piece to the puzzle that you don't quite have yet, that if you just spend that time, you'll get there. And I just had to believe in myself that it was going to happen. And it did. Fortunately, I mean, this is like the most incredible job. I love what I do. And I also love the fact that I get to talk to lots of other people about doing this, being in journalism, being in media, telling our stories, because we need you. We need you so desperately. Like, this is not a game. People need to know what we're capable of and what we can accomplish and what we've already done, like what our history is. Those are the things that matter so much right now, and we need people to be in this space. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. So also, as being editor-in-chief now, in terms of the people that work for you, the people that work in your team, what are the qualities that you look out for in bringing people into your team?
Well, you know, it's really different now, because in the beginning, when I first started, there wasn't a lot of social media. So that wasn't something that you would consider a lot. It was more about just somebody's idea generation, their ability to put together a story. But now it's really about what is your how influential? Yeah. How much are you in the conversation? Yeah. So when when young people apply for a position at Essence, I check out their social media. I want to know what they're doing. What is your voice on social media? What do you care about? What's important to you? What matters to you? Yeah. Because that gives me a lot of insight into what contribution you can make as a part of the team. And I think everybody does that now. But I think it's important. I mean, in addition to just the basic strong skills, those soft skills are also important too.
Yeah. Okay, so before we open the floor to the audience, I just want to ask you a fun question. So in terms of all the covers that you've had and all the celebs that you've had in the magazine, are there any particular celeb stories that stand out to you, or any favorite covers that you had because of any experiences with the celebs?
Oh, Oh, wow, there's really so many. I'm thinking about the Obamas, which I mentioned earlier, just being able to have them together on a cover, because we'd had them separately on covers, but never together. That took a year of negotiation, planning, talking. There was a period of time where I thought, oh, this is not gonna happen. Like, I just don't know if this is gonna happen. And I would have been so disappointed. But finally, it came through. And then to be able to actually interview them was extraordinary. I'll never forget that moment for the rest of my life. The unnerving part was I literally had 20 minutes to ask all of my questions. And there was someone standing there with their phone, with a timer, counting down and telling me, oh, you only have, so to try to stay calm with, first of all, you're in front of the two of them, and then just to make sure you get all your questions in and do a good job for the brand and all those things. That was an extraordinary experience, and the cover was viral. Like, it was everywhere, because I think people just wanted to acknowledge, what their contribution had been. And so that's one that that's a personal favorite of mine. But there are so many covers that we've done that I think that we have an incredible team of very passionate women and men, and they really care about what they do, and I hope that shows in what we do.
It does. Thank you, Vanessa. So we'd like to open the floor, if that's okay with you. Okay, thank you.
I run a fashion journal in my college here in Lagos, and one problem I have is creating content, convincing the people on my team to understand the concept I have for each of the covers that we release. Because we wanted to release an issue on sex recently, and I didn't want it to be outright. I didn't want the message to be completely out there. I wanted people to, take their time to look at the cover properly and understand what we are trying to show them. But they wanted it to be sex, sex, sex. They wanted it to scream sex. So please, I want you to shed more light on how people should create their content to match their themes, and what they want people to understand from their content.
Okay, so the question is really about how, when you have a very clear concept in your mind of what your cover should represent, what that story concept should be, how do you then get everybody else on board on your team to execute it in the way that you want to see it executed, right? Okay. I think it's really important to spend time with each person who's on your team to understand what they care about and what their point of view is, what their aesthetic is, and then also to share what yours is, because you can't assume that everyone knows what you have this idea in your head and you may think it is amazing, but then when you try to communicate that to your team, they don't get it. And I know that can be really hard to understand, but I've seen it happen. So what I've learned to do is to spend time with everyone explaining, this is why this needs to be this way, or this is the message that we're trying to send, or this is the emotion. But I don't do that once everything's already done. You do that at the very beginning, at the very outset, so that they come back with something that you want, that they're clear. And then sometimes you just need to be on the shoot and just see it and just give a little nudge here and there and explain, okay, well, you know what, I think maybe we should do this, or just to give that feedback, I think is incredibly important, and it will help you to get what you ultimately want. But you have to get everybody's buy-in first. You can't always assume that everyone's on the same page as you. Okay?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, ma. Yeah, my name is Akimoye Oluwambe. It has been a pleasure listening to you for some minutes now. And I want to ask, I want to believe that a lot of energy, time, and efforts have been put in for you to achieve to be an award-winning journalist. I'm from a textile design background. I want to know if a robust knowledge about various textile materials, designs, and illustrations indeed help you to have achieved this feat.
Yes, I would say absolutely. When I worked, after Glamour magazine, I worked at Life magazine, which was a photography magazine for those of you who are way, way younger than me. And I learned a lot about telling stories visually, and the understanding of that with art, design, illustration, all those things are part of the storytelling mode, and I think it's helped me tremendously to make sure that the experience that people have when they come to the magazine is complete. It's not, there's something aesthetically, visually exciting for them to see, and then there's also the words and the passion behind the words. So I hope that answers your question, but it's incredibly important.
Thank you.
I'm a fashion designer. I imagine styles and I create them. I mean, I sketch it out and create it. But sometimes I feel disappointed when many do not like it. So what do I do? Do I redesign? Do I give up on making the style? Or do I wait for someone to appreciate it?
Oh, wow, that's an amazing question. I mean, I think it can be, listen, we're all, especially if you're a creative person, we're all sensitive about our stuff, right? We all want everyone to love what we do. And sometimes part of the creative process is knowing that it's accepting that not everyone is going to love everything that you do, but someone will. And many people will. It's just don't let one person's opinion or perspective on your work jade you to your creativity. If you have a story that you want to tell and you're creative and you feel good about what you're creating, I think that's amazing. And I don't think that anybody should squash that. I think what you have to do is spend time finding the right audience for what you're doing. And that can take some time. I mean, it can absolutely take some time, but it's worth it if it means that much to you. If you have that passion, that fire, then don't give up. Just keep going, keep going.
Hello, my name is Uche Peter. My question is this: I want to know how you deal with competitions, like how maybe your magazine, you see other upcoming magazines or doing something better than you. How do you deal with competition? Secondly, what story brought about your turning point, brought about your breakthrough in your career?
All right, okay, so the first question was, how do we deal with competition? I think that competition is healthy, right? It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you thinking, well, how do I do my best? How do I keep trying new things? How do I keep exploring different ideas? How do I push myself to do something that we've never done before? And that kind of leads into my next answer, which is one of the things, well, two of the things I've been most proudest of that we've done for Essence is in 2015, when we did our February 2015 cover, which was about Black Lives Matter, and it was the first time we'd ever done a cover with no image on the cover, just words. We did words and hashtags of the different things that were going on in our community that represented what was going on in our community, and asked our audience and people who are thought leaders in this space to talk about, well, what do we do now? I mean, police brutality, we're dealing with all these incredible issues, what do we do? And I think it was really important for us to make that statement at that time, because it let our audience know that we care about all of the parts of you. People think about a women's magazine and they think sometimes it's just, it's fashion, it's beauty, it's fluff, but Essence has never been that. Essence has always had the community as a part of its DNA from the very beginning. And so to make a statement saying that this is something that we all should care about and there's no other thing that is more important to us, no celebrity, nothing on this cover than that, that was a tremendous moment I felt for us as a team, you know, personally, and then for us as a team. So, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Here.
Thank you.
Hello,
Okay, next question.
Thank you very much for your class. I really appreciate it. It's a writer's world, more now than ever. So I want to know what inspires you as a writer, as an editor. What inspires you?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Thank you. What inspires me is different all the time, I have to say. I spend a lot of time reading I've always been a reader, so I read lots of amazing fiction, nonfiction books, just to hear different voices and just to read great writing. But I also, every once in a while, I'll go to the, when I'm through an airport, I'll pick up a bunch of magazines that I would never normally pick up. Like, I'll just pick up very random things just because I want to feel inspired. Like, maybe there's something in this book that I'd never thought about before that I can learn something from, and maybe that will inspire an idea, and so on and so on and so on. And then the other thing that a teacher taught me a while ago was, after you read an article in a newspaper or a magazine, you think about the 3 things that that story didn't tell you. Was there something else you wanted to know, or how could you take that story further? And that just gets you in the habit of generating ideas. I mean, that's what this business is. If you can generate ideas like that, you will be successful, because there's always a demand for ideas, and there's sometimes a shortage of good ones. So you spend the time really thinking about what's something that no one has ever written about before, or an angle that I think is important that no one's touched. That, you know, that can yield tremendous ideas. But I'm inspired by other writers. I'm inspired by the everyday, and I'm inspired by my team, to be quite honest with you, and the things that are important to them.
How did you get here? You know, being an Ebla pen, even major at Essence, what are those interesting tales, you know, mistakes and revelations you experienced while going up? Like, how did you arrive to this place? Then another one is, I know most mentees are interested in what they want to take away from the mentor. I don't know, how can I help you?
Oh, please, I've made a cajillion mistakes. There are some covers that I can't even look at sometimes. I'm like, what was I thinking when we decided to do this? I mean, you have to take chances, and sometimes you're gonna fall on your face, but you learn fast. The secret is fail fast and keep moving, you know, learn from what you did that wasn't great, and then figure out how to, like, twist it so that the next time it's even greater. I think that it's okay to make mistakes. I tell my team that all the time. I really do. I'm like, okay, that didn't work out. That wasn't so great. All right, we learned from that. Let's move on. But you can't get better if you're not making mistakes. I hope that that answered your question about the challenges. There are many, many challenges, of course. There's challenges in terms of just making sure that we're competitive, and making sure that we stay ahead of the curve, and making sure that our voices doesn't get lost. There are so many ways for people to get to reach this audience now, and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I cut through all of the noise? And the thing that I think is important is that you have to know for yourself, what do you stand for? Like, what is truly the message that you're trying to say? What are the things that no one else can do that you do? And stick to that and be very vigilant about it. because then people understand what you value and what you care about. I hope that that answers the first question. The second, mentors. Yes, I've had a number over the years, some that looked like me and some that didn't. And I think, you know, we have to be open sometimes to folks who want to be a help, a mentor, a sponsor to you that aren't always going to look like you, but have great advice, have great contacts, can speak up for you in the room when you're not there, and can make, you know, can pave the way for you in some ways. How you develop those relationships is really a matter of what they see in you and what you see in them. And it needs to be mutual, and it can't just be one-sided.
Hi, my name is Simi Asiri. I run a Pan-African fashion magazine here called Chic. My question is...
Louder.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I run a fashion magazine here called Chic. My question is, I love what you guys do. The question is, how did you make the leap from having a magazine to Essence Fest?
Oh, how do we make the leap from the magazine to Essence Fest?
Magazines to doing events, yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. Oh, that's a great question. So the Essence Festival 23 years ago, Essence Fest started. It was a celebration, originally going to be a one-time celebration of the 25th anniversary of the magazine. It was just going to be that one, you know, major party, and that was it. But it was so successful. People were so excited to be in New Orleans over the 4th of July weekend, with programming that was like very much like what you have here. I mean, there's free daytime programming throughout the weekend, and then at night you'd have concerts in the Superdome in New Orleans. And people were so excited about it that we knew we had to keep going. And now we're going into our 24th year of that event. And I have to say it's evolved over time, but what's great about the way that we work is that it really is an ecosystem where you have, everything feeds off something else. So the magazine speaks about or features stories that are people who eventually could be at festival, either in the daytime or the nighttime experience. So there's a connectivity there. And the same thing with online. You know, we're showcasing voices that we want to see, but we're also helping people get to know these voices and get to know these people, so that by the time you come to the festival, you feel like they're your old friends. You know, you know them, you love them, you're excited to see them. Some people have come back year after year, like Reverend Al Sharpton has been there every single year. Other folks, it may just be their first time, but we use our platforms, all of our platforms, to help support each other, and that's, I think, really is the key to the success of that. Yeah.
Hello, Ma.
Hello.
My question is, looking at Nigerian journalists today, what spice do you think we can add to our job to make us outstanding?
Oh, can you say that again, please?
Oh, okay. I said, looking at Nigerian journalists today, what spice do you think we can add up to our jobs to make us outstanding?
Oh, I mean, wow, I don't know that I can answer that in a very knowledgeable way, in a way that's going to be helpful to you. But I will say this: when I think about journalism and I think about storytelling, I always think about what feels real and what feels true. And if you can spend time, even when you're interviewing the people for whatever the story is, I mean, it could be anything, just getting at what feels real and what feels true, that's the thing that people respond to the most, quite honestly, in any story that you're telling. I think, listen, everybody's journalism is going to be different depending on what you're doing. Some people are doing reporting on the scene. Some people are doing feature stories. It's all has different styles, but I think those two things are the through line through all of it: what's real and what's true, and what people can connect with.
So to keep it real, basically, to keep stories real. Okay, so we have time for one more question.
Okay.
And then we're going to wrap up. So
my question is, you made mention that you worked 7 years as a retailer, of which you quit to pursue your dreams. So what I was looking out for was, what was the first step you took? You understand? Because in Nigeria, most of us experience this. You work in a different field, but when you want to pursue your dream, it's a different career entirely. So what was the first step you took in realizing your dreams?
Okay, so so after I did the job in retailing, I took a summer program at NYU, New York University. It was in book and magazine publishing, and it was an 8-week program. I did it because they have a job fair at the end of it, and I figured, oh, at least I'll meet some people in the industry and I can make some connections. They had many people who were teaching, who worked in the industry. So I'm like, I'll get to meet editors and I'll get to meet writers, and then there'll be a job fair at the end. And so I took full advantage of that. And then I decided that my story would be that I was a fashion writer because I had the fashion background. So everyone I met with at the job fair, I said, this is what, this is what I can do, this is what I'm interested in. And that is how I ended up with the job at Glamour. I mean, I just was very consistent, but I knew that I had the skill set. This is what I was talking about earlier. Like, you have the skills, you have the tools, but you have to sometimes tweak them to fit whatever that next thing is that you're going for. And as long as you have a story that's not like a made-up story, but something you truly believe and that you feel good about saying and that you feel is a contribution that you can make, then you can do it. I mean, listen, if I did it, and I'm literally, I mean, everybody was younger. Every single person on that floor was younger than me. But somehow they let me through. And sometimes that's all you need, just that one person to say yes. I connected with the woman who was my boss, and she understood because she had been a career changer, and it just worked, So sometimes you just have to find that right person, but it can happen. Listen, if it happened for me, it can happen for anyone.